First of all, we are from Savita School of Law, and we all three were fifth years. And my name is Shubha Yoga Shekhar. And good evening to one and all present here. So, thank you for inviting us for this wonderful webinar this evening. And we are very much privileged to give our insights about the mooting journey from all these states. So, I myself, I'm doing my final year in Savita School of Law. I'm doing my BA LLB honors. So I have participated around 11 national moots and represented and in for national rounds of international moots, lead and Surrey. And we have participated in three inter-college moots as well. And out of which I have won four national moots and one inter-college moots. So this is my mooting journey. And this is how the last win for us is a big government law college moot, along with under the aegis of National Human Rights Commission, New Delhi.
So my colleague here has explained our moot journey together, considering that we have done this together as a team for the past 3 years, if I'm not wrong. So we have been together for all the moots that she just specifically told. Apart from that, I have been adjudged as the semi-finalist in KLE's ICC Brown and Mostyn client counseling competition. So that is a small nugget of input that I can give on my part. Other than that, she has covered it all.
Hello all, good evening first of all. So myself Rangila from final year from Savita School of Law. So as my team have already told the winnings of our team, like we've been together from the past 3 years as a team. So apart from that, I won the best researcher of 2020 in the inter-college competition held in a college.
That's great to hear. And to just start off with the session, I would just like to ask you all that considering that the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Government Law College's moot court competition is a very prestigious moot court competition, and this year's moot problem was based on surrogacy and human rights. So what was the reason behind choosing this moot on part of your team? And was it your interest in environmental law, or is there a particular reason, if you all could explain?
Yeah, so surrogacy bill and surrogacy by itself is still a topic in debate and also considered as a taboo in our society still now by all social and religious groups. So surrogacy, that topic as well, and by far the international aspects involved in in the moot problem intrigued us to take up this topic to do the moot.
All right. So in your opinion, what all things should mooters keep in mind while choosing a particular moot? Mr. Madhu, if you could answer that, or Ms. Subha, please.
Ladies first, Subha, go ahead.
Yeah. So the basic thing that, in my point of view, I have in mind while choosing a moot is that whether we'll be able to research thoroughly or whether it will be helpful for us in our career for the next what we are going to do. So that is a basic thing that I would see. And the second one is that the importance of advocacy, that how far we were researched previously in our own areas. Like one, I have gone for many in constitutional law modes. So if we are well versed in that, I will be more comfortable in taking constitutional law modes because I have already been to many modes and I can give so much inputs and research on particular aspect. So this is my aspect of choosing a particular mode.
So Rangila, a minute, and then you can give a researcher's perspective on that. So
Yeah.
Before I could clarify, Subha here is our usual speaker, and I'm speaker too, and Rangila is the researcher of our team. So her unique perspective on choosing constitutional law is dependent upon her being very thorough in citing landmark judgments and breaking down statutory provisions. So she's really good at that. So that's where her stronghold is. So whereas myself is considered, so I am good at the facts of any case. So if a fact impresses me in any moot court competition, I'd be glad enough to go for the same. So that is me. Factual play and word play is where I excel at. So if something impresses me with the fact of the case or the nuances in the drafting, then I would go for the same.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think like more than what I learned in classrooms, I've learned a lot in preparing for the moods. So when a topic is new to me and it's out of my comfort zone, then I think we should go for it. So at least through the mood, we can learn the laws.
So, Ms. Rangila, if you could also tell our viewers as to the difficulty level of your mood proposition. So that,
The current mood proposition,
yes.
yeah, it was actually quite difficult, I would say, because uh, not only it talks about the surrogacy in India, but also it deals with the international aspect where one country was allowed, where another country wasn't allowed to take up the surrogacy in India. So I think that point was really intriguing us to take up that topic. So on general, I would say that this was definitely a difficult proposition.
So, Ms. Subha, if you could tell our viewers as to how long did you as a team needed to decode the entire problem and formulating the issues if they were not provided?
Yeah. First of all, I make a clarification that they have reported for four of the issues in the problem itself. So we didn't have that difficulty in devising about the issues and all. So we took, to be very honest, we took maximum 3 days. Even the time limit we took for this whole month is 3 days. So basically, but I don't advise everyone to do that. But as so far we are concerned, we took 3 days to decode the problem, go do research and all the facts, and go beyond the facts. Also, we did for certain issues to go beyond the facts and find the solutions. So maximum 3 days is the thing we usually take. But if we have started earlier, I think we could have even excelled a lot in our research. But this was quite a difficult problem, as my researchers said. And I think Madhu can answer this question more effectively than me.
So basically, what we're trying to say is that we don't propagate or do a propaganda here that everybody can follow 3 days as a challenge to do a mood problem. So that is not the way to go about it. But we went in that way, considering that all our mood preparations for the past 6 or 7 moods that I have been in, and the 11 moods that Subha has been in, have been a 3-day preparation. So it is our own method of working in such a very short timeline to put more pressure on ourselves to give the best out of us. So considering diamonds only come out more shining in the under the pressure, so we consider ourselves as diamonds. So we don't take much time. We use very little time to prepare, and that would be really good for us as a team.
I feel that that is really inspiring as a viewer, that you could crack a particular problem in just a matter of 3 days. Madhu, it would also be great if you could elaborate on how did you guys as a team divide the work amongst yourselves?
I'll be glad to. So usually, when a mood problem is posted for anything, we have a WhatsApp group for ourselves. So any one of us, if comes across an interesting mood, we just share it, and then if we are impressed towards it, first we would see what the fact is all about, or what is the social thing that is it is related to. So first thing that we would identify in a problem is that what is happening in the society and what has transpired into such a mood problem. So every mood problem is linked to something directly given in the society, in newspapers and any other articles. So we aim to find the real problem so as to deal our fictitious problem. And the work allocation between us is that we strictly follow a code that the whole memo, the skeleton of the memo is prepared by the researcher, that is not including the arguments. So we divide up issues among ourselves, and if I'm doing 2 issues myself, I do the arguments on my own, and with the inputs of my researcher and my co-speaker, and my co-speaker does her own arguments. So this, after we complete the memo, we read it as a whole to find the rhythm that we are in. This is to alleviate any problems as to if a judge poses a question that is pertaining to an issue that I have prepared an argument for to Subha, she must be able to answer the same without stealing my points. So that is the nuance that you have to find. So the first speaker would be put in a very difficult position by judges by asking questions relating to the fourth or the final issue that I would be dealing upon. So we have a rhythm to follow, that we don't encroach upon other person's argument, but we also not evade from the question. We just say crisp about that issue, and then we say that our co-counsel will handle the same, so that we don't encroach upon their arguments. So, and we are very strong about dealing with arguments, considering that we want to make sure it is bulletproof, so that nobody can weasel their way into it and find our weak point. So we make sure of that. That's why we prepare our own arguments. The speakers prepare their own arguments, and the researcher would help in finding landmark judgments and perfecting the any grammatical errors as such.
I think that is a very efficient way to do that. Ms. Subha, a follow-up question to you is that while drafting the memorial, did each person, like as already explained by Mr. Madhu, that you clearly divided the issues amongst yourselves, but was there a particular time when both of you were working on all the issues, or three of you were working on all the issues, or was the demarcation of all the issues strict at all points?
Yeah. To answer this question, the one important difficulty we face in this mood also, like regarding issue number 3 or 4, that's Madhu's issue, like regarding the surrogacy and even the maintainability issue. The first two were regarding the maintainability issue in this particular mood which we won. So it is about National Human Rights Commission's maintainability, and the other one is about the maintainability of the international body, that is the OHCHR. So it filed an intervening petition. So this was very difficult in decoding. So for second issue, we all three worked together to find a solution for that, because only myself, I cannot just find a solution for that particular point, because we have three different perspectives for all the issues. We have three different perspectives. All three will give our opinion upon one particular issue. Only then we'll be drafting our arguments. But as Madhu said, we draft our own arguments, but the inputs will be from all three of us. That is how a particular issue goes, because we cannot just rely upon one person's perspective and draft an argument. So we rely upon all the three of his opinion, and only then we'll draft the problem. So I think it's more upon the opinion of three others and drafted by one particular person. That is how I would like to put forward.
Okay. So, Ms. Rangila, when the memorial was ready, was it you or was it any of the team members who maintained consistency, or as Madhu pointed out, rhythm of the memorial, or was it like, how did you do it if you did it?
Yeah, initially regarding the memorial, I'll prepare the skeleton and forward it to both my speakers, so that we'll have an idea about the skeleton. Like all the issues will be already put up. Only the arguments part will be left a space. So before starting with the main memorial, we'll first do a rough draft in separate docs where all the arguments will be put. Later on, once all the drafting work has been done, myself, Subha, and Madhu, three of us will together we format the things. Mostly myself and Subha will work on the memorial during the last minute, because Madhu is the last time worker, so he usually drags the preparation of arguments. So we both actually work together, myself and Subha Yoga. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Guilty as charged.
So, Mr. Madhu, if you could also elaborate on how did you guys prepare for oral rounds after your memorial submission?
I primarily suggest that oral rounds, the main thing to prepare for oral rounds is that keeping your arguments within the time period given to you. So preliminary rounds is the first round that any person would be facing, and it is very constrained. That is a 20-minute round, perhaps, or a 30-minute round, within which both the speakers have to complete their arguments, even if the issues are more than 4 issues. So that is very important. Time constrainment, that is the main issue that you have to deal with for oral practice. So we usually you do a practice for an hour. So that is more than enough for us, considering that we prepare our arguments. So that helps us in this step. So considering that we know what is in the memo from the top to the bottom, we do not need time to practice orally. Considering we have already been in many other modes, we do not actually go for an oral practice round, but instead we practice within ourselves, that is our team, for what are the points to say and what are the points to conveniently avoid. So these are the things that we do in oral practice. Oral practice, that is, we don't rely much time upon oral practice than we rely upon drafting. So drafting is key for our team's rhythm. That is, we ensure that every speaker knows what is in their draft. Even in, if I can cite a problem of our own, this was an Amity National Moot Court competition in 2019, which we bagged. In that, I had in my sleep drive include an argument for the positive for the petitioners in a respondent memo. So there are three things to consider here. That is, firstly, we did it in a very short span of time. That is, which we already suggested, don't do it. We did it in a very short span of time, and we knew what we put inside the memo. But me, without my own conscience, have included arguments for the petitioners in the respondent memo. We still backed that, considering I knew what was in the memo. I knew what to avoid and what not to speak before the judges in the finals, who were sitting high court judges. So I just evaded that point so as to ensure that I don't speak it out loud. So oral practice was not there, but my drafting stance was strong enough to avoid certain points so as to constrain my arguments. So time management would be key in oral arguments, and we don't go for oral practice as much as we go for drafting practice. We like to perfect it. After that flaw, we perfected it further. So every mistake we learn more.
I think your presence of mind really helped you. So that is great to hear. I have one question in the chat box, which says that what is better, to participate in big reputed moot court competitions and gain experience, or to participate in small moot court competitions and win them? So if any of you could answer that, that would be great.
I'd go ahead. So my perspective is very open-minded, to be honest. So every mooting experience is really cherishable. It doesn't matter what college backs up the moot court competition, or what foundation or institution backs up the moot court competition. Everything is for your growth, and everything is for you to learn more. So I personally feel that my personal commitment to a moot comes from the moot problem itself, and the amount of time I have on my leisure to go for a moot court competition. It does not entirely depend upon the big names or the institution that backs it up, but I would suggest for beginners to go for first national moot court competitions to ensure that they feel at ease, which is a common agenda that everybody feels to follow. That is, going for a fresh moot court competition would give them more chance to win that said moot court competition, whereas going for an experience or a backed up by an institution competition would not give them much chance. So I would just rely upon ask them to rely upon their own skill and preparation than to rely upon the institution that hosts the competition. So you choose your moot, you choose when you want to participate in that moot, regardless of who organizes the moot.
If I may add one point to what Madhu said, from our own very experience, all three of experience, we participated in KEET National Moot Court competition. We all know KEET is such a big institution where it's one of the most famous national moots in India. It was 7th KEET National Moot Court competition we participated, and there were 54 teams, if I'm not wrong, from my other teammates, if I may confirm. So there are 54 teams in total, and the judges from the preliminary rounds were like really, really very, very thorough with their problems, and that was one of the most biggest moot, or the one moot which I will never personally forget in my lifetime, because that moot made us to go far till now, because that was the biggest national moot that. After that only we won Amity, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, after that moot we won Amity national moot together. So in that national moot, 54 teams from all over colleges, all national law institutions, all the reputed colleges were participating in that particular moot. And that was one moot, we qualified. We never thought we would qualify for the next round in that moot, because we saw such a big competition we had. But as Madhu said correctly, that we believe only upon our very own skills to prepare and to argue before the judges, because judges were extremely thorough with their problems on all the legal points. And to be very honest, we didn't even actually answer for certain questions which were put forward by the judges. But we qualified as the overall number 2 team among the 54 teams. So, and we were the only two teams, and the team which took the first spot, and the second team, which was us. We are the two teams which crossed 600 marks, more than 600. We got 600 marks out of 700. Others were very behind us. So I would say believe your skills and then participate in a mood, because rather than going for small moods and big moods, but as Madhu said rightly, for beginners, I would also suggest to go for first national mood, second national moods, even if it's big institution or any other institution, that doesn't matter. I'll suggest them to go for the first national mood organized by any colleges across India.
Okay. So, Ms. Rangila, if you could elaborate on the quality of the judges in your moot court competition, and were they like, or the experience that you have had with the judges?
So as far as in this mood concerned, all the judges were very much well acquainted with the facts of the case. They asked proper questions. Like in most of the moods, they seem like they're grilling us. Like as Subha said that she wouldn't forget the experience we had in KIT mood. There the judges literally grilled us. There we knew what mood is actually. We learned a lot in that mood. We had even bitter experiences in that mood. Like we learned how to be inside a court hall, the court manners and all we learned there, like how to sit, even the bench where we organize our books and keep, that matters a lot. The way we sit matters a lot. The way our eye contact is matters a lot. So that taught us a lot. In this mood, it all went well, it all went smooth. But I wouldn't say that it was easy. It was actually difficult. Like they were well acquainted with everything. Like they asked questions which nobody would have answered, but my awesome speakers answered very well, and they were convincing the judges. Even the judges came and personally congratulated us for the same.
That's great to hear. So, Mr. Madhu, I have a question in the chat box. If you could elaborate on that, that how do you handle a hot bench when they're asking you continuous bombarding questions?
Yes, so this is one of the key problems that any mooter have to address in moot court competition. So there are various kinds of judges, but there will definitely be a judge who is the best advocate, who wants to come there and win the best speaker or best male or female speaker in that competition, considering they're judges, but they still do have that spirit to win the competition. So they just come and start grilling us, start arguing with us about our own preparation and the mood problem itself. So I can give you two instances as to how I dealt it. So the first thing is that what was an amateurish move on my part, considering it was my first national moot court competition. So I went over the top and then could not handle the pressure that they were putting on me. They were bombarding me with questions. I will take the liberty to explain that particular question that was posed to me. So this was during the peak crisis of decriminalization of 377 of IPC. So during that, the judge was posing me the question that now you are asking to engage in unnatural form of sexual relation with LGBTQ community. What if you come up the next day or in a very short span of time and ask that you have a pet dog and you like that dog very much that you want to have coitus with it? So this was the question that was posed to me by that honorable judge. So I lost my patience at that moment because comparing that LGBTQ community with having bestiality was too beyond for me to comprehend. So at that amateurish level, so I just closed my memo, stepped away from the podium, and just told my honorable judge that it cannot be compared as such, and this comparison is beyond any prudence of a common man, your lordship. So this was my words in my first moot court competition. I strictly ensure that please don't do that, because we didn't qualify after prelims. We went home happily and went to zoo and etc. So we did not go in the next level. But considering this moot court competition in Pondicherry, the same grilling happened, and many questions were come into place. And one key question that came into place was they compared surrogacy with prostitution. So kudos to them. So I just went, considering the experience I had in previous moot and my stupid move in my first moot, I kept that all in mind and then answered them very politely, humbly begging to differ from their points, stating that it cannot be compared so, whereas one is done entirely for monetary compensation, whereas the other is considered divine as giving birth, giving life into the society. So that stance that I took gave me way to go into the next level. So I could have just erratically shouted out before this court that how can you compare these both things, this is not right, blah blah blah. I can do that, but I knew from experience I am not supposed to do that. So it is the handling bombarding judges all waters down to one thing: how cool you are when they pose a question to you. Any question they pose is their key agenda is to put you off track, put you off your memo and your preparation. So just keep calm even in that situation, which will only come from experience, which is clear in my case. You can do that by experience and understanding the question they pose and the intention behind such questions. The intention is usually to put you off track, get you pissed off. That is the intention. So don't give way into that, move away from it, and the key term is you humbly always beg to differ from their point. So that is how you handle a bombarding bench.
So yeah, I would like to add a point. Like there, I think by bombarding questions, judges are actually testing our patience level. So the more patient and calm we are, I think they will be convinced by our arguments. So yeah, for the question, I think we have to be calm, as my co-speaker, I mean my speaker has told. So it's just to test the patient and not to irritate you. But we might feel irritated if it's the first mood. But as you go to several moods, you'll get experience and you'll know how to behave.
Definitely. So I have one more question in my chat box. It says that at the last day of your memorial submission, what is that one thing that you should focus more on? Is it research? Is it editing? Or is it drafting of the memorial?
Okay, I would go forward to answer this question. So when you have a last day, 1 day left, the basic thing that we used to do is we'll usually complete all the drafting way ahead. Only Madhu's drafting will be pending, as we said earlier. So that before that, we both used to coordinate with each other and finish the editing. We make sure we don't leave any way for to see the memo as two, because my way of drafting is completely different from Madhu's way of drafting. So what I used to do is we wanted to make it as a one cohesive thing, so that they don't identify that two people have drafted this memo actually. So that is a one basic important thing that we have to keep in mind while we draft a memo. That too, if it's in a final day, you have to see whether the language, the way they have drafted is similar or different, or you have to change the particular thing. And while you including certain editing things also, my way of editing will be different and Madhu's way of editing will be different. So researchers work on the last day will be really important at that time. So it will be like a three part: the skeleton part, the arguments of mine, and arguments of my co-speaker. So making this at a one in complete memo is what we have to do in the last final day, and make sure we leave no way for spelling mistake and grammatical mistake, which is very blatant thing to do. And the number two thing is the another important part is the citations. I would always recommend to go with the blue book citation, even if it is mentioned in the rule book or not. Yeah, we always go with the blue book citation. So that is the standard form of citation that we use. So make sure the citation is right in all the pages that you put. and page numbers, which are the basic editing thing, and we have to follow, because in one mood we have failed, as Madhu said, we have put the in respondent memo, we have made a petitioner's argument there. So these are some important things that we have to have a keen eye on to avoid further mistakes in the memo, because there is one important award also as best memorial award. So it is possible to get even that award if your memorial is good, it is well drafted, and it is well edited. So these are the basic things that you have to do in the final day of the memo submission.
All right. Thank you for answering that question. My next question to you all is, how well was the moot organized? Were there any administrative hiccups on the organizing committee's part, or any technical glitch that you faced?
I would like to answer this question. This moot was very well organized. My speakers would agree to this. This is by far the best moot we've ever seen on the basis of organizing, and especially the time management. We are still in awe, like how they managed to finish it on time. We've been to so many moots, and we've never seen any moot finishing it on time and finishing it on the time which was mentioned in the schedule. So we got a schedule, and they stood on point with everything, like from the very first day till the valedictory ceremony. Everything was on time, and especially their yummy food. My team would agree on this. Their yummy food was awesome. So everything makes that college as the best college organizing the moot.
So to be honest on this point, we have been to Amity, and we have been to KIT Bhubaneswar, we have been to Leiden Saran national rounds, and these are the very reputed colleges that we have been to, who did an excellent job on their part in organizing the said competition. But we give special credits to Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College Puducherry, which was under the aegis of National Human Rights Commission. That is, everything was on point. Everything comprises of whatever they gave you in schedule on day one. That was followed strictly and stringently throughout the competition. If a round starts at 9:30, it starts at 9:30, and if it's supposed to end at 10:30, it will end at 10:30. But there was a circumstance where a round was supposed to start at 10, but it started at 11. But they still managed to bring it into time, and they ended the whole competition by 5, as stated in the schedule, 5 p.m. So I was really mesmerized as to how can a 1 hour delay be accommodated into the schedule. So we ourselves have organized competitions in our own institution, and we failed to do that even if while we were organizing. So it was very very mesmerizing. To be honest, we were really surprised to see that it was on time. Everything was on time. I can't just find one flaw. If I close my eyes and think about this competition, I literally can't find any administrative hiccup in this. Everything from the start till we packed up and left that college was on point.
Well, that is amazing. Is the only word that is on the top of my head right now. And so I have one more question in my chat box that says that if you could prescribe, Miss Subha, if you could answer this question, that if you could prescribe a way to present arguments before the judges in a presentable manner, what would that be?
Okay. So usually I'm the speaker one. For a clarification, I'm telling it. So I'm a speaker one. Madhu is speaker two. So usually in every mood, for all the moods we have gone, I'm the speaker one, he's the speaker two. I usually deal with the legal aspect. So for a team to be successful, there should be two speaker in a two different manner. One is conventional mooter, the other one is modern mooter. So I'm the conventional person, like dealing with the facts, breaking up the sections and arguments, giving a landmark judgments, breaking the particular section with the legal points. And Madhu is completely different. He's a modern mooter. Like he always goes with the facts. He dwells upon the facts. He bends the facts according to him, but make sure that just don't find out that he's bending the facts. So he's such a kind of a person. So my way of presenting that conventional method, I usually I go with start with my maintainability issue. Like any mood, any problem we take, we go with the maintainability. So how I used to break my issue is even in the summary of my particular issue, I'll mention these are the four crux, these are the 4 points I'm going to elaborate my argument upon. Like I'm going to deal with 4 sub issues. So these are the 4 sub issues I'm going to deal with. So first one will be for the maintainability will be the locus standi. So whether, because that is a basic thing that you require for a person to be maintainable or come before this honorable court to argue or file a petition. Yes. So first is locus standi, and next is if you have a locus standi, and what is an important issue that you have come forward, that what makes you maintainable before this honorable court. And the next one is you have to build upon the particular sub issue. It must be in a line of arguments that one sub issue correlates with the other. That if you break in the second issue and you go for the fourth, that doesn't make sense. You have to go in a chain of arguments, like starting with one, and it should continue with the two, and it should go on with three, and if finally it should end with four. So usually I recommend to go with 4 sub issues maximum I'm telling you. So this is the conventional way of addressing a legal problem, that is breaking down of any section or speaking about any constitutionality provisions or any of the sections that is involved in any of the particular statute. So you must start with the basic issue, like why are you approaching this honorable court, and what is the particular grievance, and to the point you have to start with the issue. And then you have to finish and elaborate, and these are the legal points, and correlate it with the facts and complete the particular issue. So this is my way of breaking down the issue and going on with the arguments. And the other modern mooter will tell us how he is going on with his particular issue.
So I'm humbled. I'm the modern mooter now. Thank you. So considering my way of preparation and how I argue in a mood, I can very openly say that my sub issues are not as broken down as Subha's. My sub issues are probably in a very collective and a cohesive manner, where a mood proposition flows. Like a problem flows in a cohesive manner. It is not broken into 4 different parts in the mood proposition. I ensure that my problem also, my drafting also is not broken up into sub issues. I want there to be flow to be seen very apparent in the memo itself. So that's how I make it. And secondly, I don't go for 4 sub issues. I only constrain it to 2 sub issues if there need be. And my way of argument would always rely upon the arguments of the petitioners if we are respondents. And if we are respondents, I'm giving a key advice only when you are in a respondent point of view. So even if I prepared something, I came prepared for something, my arguments are totally different than what is in the memo. Usually whatever the petitioner says in the competition, I take that, form my own arguments in that moment. My argument would only be a rebuttal. It would not be reliant upon my memo, except when the judges clearly point out some any legal questions or statutory questions. I might have to refer back to the memo. I have to come back to my stance, but I entirely bombard the opponent counsel's points while I argue. So while Subha sticks on to our problem and ensures that our problem is stable, that we have maintainability and we can approach this court and we can fight the same. Now I have a very strong built up stage to stand on. Now I will stand there and say that the other counsel is not very well capable to approach this honorable court, considering their arguments are not to be considered. So my way of arguments would be in the form of a rebuttal than of a direct argument for your own sake. So that is how I ensure that my way of arguments are. It is not entirely reliant upon the problem or your memorandum, but reliant upon your on the feet thinking and taking points from your opponents. So that is my way of arguing.
All right. So I have a question in my chat box, and I would like to reframe it a little. So the flaw that you just told us all about, that you drafted a petitioner's argument in the respondent's memo. So the question is with related to that aspect only. That what if there's a drafting error in your memorial, and the judges somehow find that out? So, how do you handle it? How would you convince the judges, nevertheless, to believe what you are there to say?
So considering I did that, I would like to answer the same. So, hope to God there was no circumstance where they found my error. So, judges do read your memo. While you are arguing, they do read your memo. It is entirely dependent upon your skill to ensure that they don't look at that spot. You have to seek their attention whenever you feel that they are going there. So, prevention is better than cure. Don't let them find out that you make a mistake. And a very constrained answer is, if they found out the mistake that you have drafted it wrong, only God can save you now. Nobody else can. Even your arguments are in the air now. So considering you have argued already for the petitioner, why are you here now? That would be the first question if I am the judge. So I would just say that it is an erratum. That is, it's a typographical error. I was sleep deprived, hence I did that, your lordship. So please forgive me, apologies. I would just beg for apology rather than to justify my stance. I would just flat fall on their feet and say that I was sleep deprived. So every battle is not worth the fight. It is the war that you are focused on. So don't stand on something you know is wrong. Just accept that you're wrong. That would impress the judges more than fighting for a wrongful fact. So I would go upon in that way. And thanks to God, they did not find out even in the finals. So I am just
Well, I think that is a very smart way to handle it. Uh, my next question would be that approximately how many teams participated, and what was your stance as to a particular competitor, if you could say, was your toughest competition? If any of you could answer.
Okay, there are almost 30 teams participating there. So it is since it is under the National Human Rights Commission's mood, the particular home team also participated. So the home team is also one of the toughest team there. Along with it, as I personally and my team personally felt, the team which we faced in the semifinals was the most tough competition we had. That is when they are from KD Society's Law College, Bangalore. They were the first time mooters. Indeed, we were really shocked to hear that they were first time mooters because they never behaved like one. So they were really giving a tough competition for us, and they were from third year, I guess. So they were the really tough mooters that we faced in almost compared to other mooting experiences that we have. So KLE Society's Law College, and even the home team is also the toughest team that so far we hear, but we didn't face them in any of the rounds previously.
All right. So, Miss Rangila, if you could tell our viewers here today as to why, and if you would recommend this particular moot for someone who is doing mooting for the very first time.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this mood for even for the freshers, because like we would have heard or even would have seen that in some moods that only top tier colleges or NLUs are being given preference. But here I would strongly say that they are not doing such things, because in every quota we like for the every rounds we got the score sheet and they were very transparent, and also we noticed that in every quota only the deserving teams went to the next rounds. So I think I would suggest this move to everyone, especially even freshers.
So add on to that also, I would suggest this move to everyone, like if for the first time mooters, because once they go for the mood for the first time, they shouldn't be exhausted when they come back, because this mood has very well organizing part. They have a very good food, so everything was in the right place. So if the first time mooters goes there, then they'll be like encouraged to go for any further moods. So that's why I would recommend this mood for any first time mooter.
All
My
right.
inputs on this moot court competition is that as I previously stated, the moot competition as a whole doesn't interest me, but the fact of a problem interests me. So only when you step into their premises, you know how it is organized, or how well accommodated you are, or how good the food there is, considering we have been in very worse circumstances. So it all depends upon your own interest to participate in a moot. Don't mind whether the moot is organized near to your institution, or near to your house, or near to your state. We have been to Mohali to Pondicherry, so we have covered the Indian terrain completely. So we don't restrict ourselves to particular moods or moods in particular states or moods to particular organizations. Whereas we let it free flow. We go where we want to, and our institution has helped us a lot in identifying such moods and encouraging us to participate in any mood that we like. So that is the backup that we get from our own institution. We are not just us, every other team who's interested in our college is actively propagated to go for moot court competitions. We conduct many moot court competitions within our college within a span of every month. So we do that to encourage mooting. So pertaining to us, we just find it easy for us to go for any moot in the terrain of India. And we were also interested to go for international moots if they were kept there. Thanks to COVID, we did not make it.
So very well said, Mr. Madhu. If all of you could give one tip each to our viewers here today with respect to mooting, what would that be?
Subha, go ahead.
So one advice that I would give for people who go for mooting is make sure you're very good on your research. Research is the one backup that you always wanted to win a moot. Because with research and oraticals, second one is oraticals, because you must have a good speaker to win. Not only your memo should be good, you can win a best memorial, but not a moot. So you need a best memo, a best speaker, all in, and all the three people in a team must be in like-minded people, so that you win a particular mood. So the one thing that I would always suggest is to choose your team wisely, have a good research skills, because without research, there is nothing in law, as we all know. And make sure you have a very good oratorical skills, because that is what will take you to the finals and make you win. So these are the three important aspects that you wanted to have to win a particular mood.
So what I would advise is choose your team carefully. Like just wait for the best team, because in this mood itself we saw another team where in one guy was extremely good, where he did not have a rhythm, as Madhu said, he did not have the rhythm with the other two teammates. So choosing a team carefully is very important. Like we should have a rhythm, and thankfully I found the rhythm with my teammates.
So it is very important that we form a compatible team. So that's what we all relied upon while summarizing their both point of view. We can clearly say that team compatibility plays a very important role while going for any moot court competition. So that is one of the things that puts you at peace of mind. You can't be with the teammate who's pestering you always or is about to punch you in the face if you speak something wrong. You should be very confident with your teammates as to share your experiences with them and choose them very carefully, so that your whole thing is a team activity. It's not an individual activity. Mooting is not individual activity. It is, you have to interact with others and you have to interact within your own team to achieve success. So if that is under turmoil, then I don't think you can move further. And secondly, I would entirely rely upon the courtroom manners and court atmosphere. So the key to success here is identifying the court atmosphere. As someone has already pointed out, what to do with bombarding judges. So that is a courtroom atmosphere. The atmosphere is hell there. So you have to be a devil inside the hell to handle the hell. You can't be an angel. You'll be burned. Wings would be ripped off. So that would be the case. So identify the atmosphere that you're in and persist. So that is key. And secondly, caution, boasting. So I am really good with humor and wit. So courtroom humor and courtroom wit matters a lot. It is not just because you prepared a memo, you are just speaking there like a robo, all your points are conveyed, doesn't mean the judge is convinced. You have to bring in on the feet thinking and your wit and clarity and humor into play. For instance, in the finals, we were judged by Honorable Thiru Justice G.R. Swaminathan and Justice B. Pugarendi, sitting Honorable High Court judges of Madras. So we were judged by them. They were bombarding us with questions left to right, even though those questions were not, they kept in mind very clearly that we were only students and constrained their questions to purely legal questions. So, Honorable Justice G.R. Swaminathan pointed out to me that you are asking surrogacy to be made legal because you cannot control surrogacy in your state. That was a condition. It was already prevailing. Now we are bringing in an act making it legal. So he took it in a stance that you can't control it, so you legalize it. So isn't that an error on your part, respondent? That's what he asked me. And then he asked me a follow-up question to that, stating now everybody is doing drugs, and that is can we also legalize that, council? Can we start doing drugs? This was the question that was posed. The courtroom was completely silent because it was in a very serious tone. Can we start doing drugs, council? That was the question, and the courtroom was very silent. I took a minute and I told, your lordship, I would not suggest you to do drugs, your lordship, it is illegal. I said that, and everybody burst into laughter. The whole courtroom presence changed in a minute. So the judge himself was laughing too loud in the mic that everybody started laughing. So I suggested the judge to not do drugs, considering it was illegal. So it was my wit and humor that won me the finals, and it was even mentioned by the judges while they were giving the valedictory speech. So they told that wit and humor always saves you, so you should know as to when to use it in the court. So that is where atmosphere comes into play. If my judges were bombarding me with questions in a very stringent manner, in a very strict manner, I wouldn't dare to use such an humor before such judge. So identifying the judges way of asking questions and the courtroom atmosphere and how you use it to your own advantage gives you the victory. So that is what my input is. Wit, humor, and courtroom atmosphere makes you a successful person.
Well, I think that all the inputs given by you and your team were very useful for all of us here today. Just to summarize, all of you have stressed upon the team composition, team compatibility, and courtroom mannerism. Needless to say that wit is that humor and wit are the most important weapons for any lawyer, and that particular counsel should know when and how to use it. With that, I would like to conclude today's session, but only to remind all the attendees to fill the feedback form and also introduce you all to our flagship courses and tell you a little bit about the organization that we are. We at Memo Pandits are one of our kind mooting school wherein we teach students numerous activities, numerous things that are quintessential to ace any particular moot court competition. Our first course is oral argumentation course, in which we train all the people enrolled in it with respect to how and why and all the know-how of a particular moot court competition which they are participating in, how to present an argument, how to summarize it at very reasonable prices. Further, we also undertake two other courses, that is memorial making course, in which we teach all the particulars of memorial drafting, how to draft it, how to format it, and all the necessary ins and outs of memorial making. Apart from that, there is a very interesting course of citations, which I believe is not restricted to any particular law student and can also be taken up by professionals and academicians who face problems while citing particular articles in their documents. Because as Ms. Subha also pointed out, that Blue Book citations or Scholar citations are very important and reflect that your particular memorial or document is well researched and is uniform throughout. So, with that, I conclude today's session. I thank you all wholeheartedly to come here today to attend this particular session, especially the team that we have here with us who have shared their experience so elaborately and have taught us so many peculiar things about mooting.
Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful opportunity to share our experiences, and all the best for the future motors.
I really thank Memo Pandits and Ms. Ananya here, who has helped us participate in this webinar and give us our own experience. So everything that we learn from it has to be passed down, and this is an example of us passing down our experience to be helpful for any other person. So we are really glad that we were given this opportunity to be here and eat up your time on a Saturday on 1 hour. So we are always ready to speak, which you can see clearly from us. But we were really glad that our speaking has gone into some minds and to enlighten them.
Thank you so much, Memo Pandits, for having us. And thank you, Pratyaksha and Ananya, for coordinating throughout this webinar, like from the starting till now. And thank you for everyone who's attending here. And I hope all the inputs that you have given you have taken seriously. At least even one point, if you have taken, we're really happy enough to give that input. Thank you so much.
Well, we are getting very good feedback in the chat box, and I feel personally very happy to have hosted this session with you all. It was a very insightful session. Thank you for joining here today. Thank you. So I am ending the meeting for all. I hope that everybody has filled the attendance form in order for the issuance of certificates.
Are we supposed to do the same or?
No,
Just...
no, 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 no. You're not supposed to.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.